Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Very warm welcome to this Monday morning Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam discussion. Today we are reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 3, entitled Pure Devotional Service, Text 12. Before we discuss on this verse, let's sing Jai Radha Madhav. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Shri Radhe, Jaya Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Shri Radhe, Jai Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Jaya Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada. Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Vishnupad Paramahans Parivrajakacharya Ashtotra Shatashi Śrīmad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, यमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, सामवेद भक्त वृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu Krishne Matilastu. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 3, entitled Pure Devotional Service. Text 12. Jñānaṁ yada āpratinivṛtta-guṇormi-cakram ātma-prasāda yatra guṇeṣv asaṅgaḥ kaivalya-sammata-pathas atha bhakti-yogaḥ nirvṛto hari-kathāsu ratiṁ kuryāt. Jñānaṁ yada āpratinivṛtta-guṇormi-cakram ātma-prasāda yatra guṇeṣv asaṅgaḥ kaivalya-sammata-pathas atha bhakti-yogaḥ nirvṛto hari-kathāsu ratiṁ kuryāt. Jñānaṁ yada āpratinivṛtta-guṇormi-cakram ātma-prasāda yatra guṇeṣv asaṅgaḥ kaivalya-sammata-pathas atha bhakti-yogaḥ nirvṛto hari-kathāsu ratiṁ kuryāt. Word by word, jnanam, knowledge, yet that which, up to the limit of, pratinivṛtta, completely withdrawn, guna urmi, the waves of the material modes, chakram, whirlpool, ātma-prasāda, self-satisfaction, uta, moreover, yatra, where there is, guṇeṣv, in the modes of nature, asaṅgaḥ, no attachment, kaivalya, transcendental, sammata, approved, pathah, path, to, but, atha, therefore, bhakti-yogaḥ, devotional service, kah, who, nirvṛttah, absorbed in, hari-kathāsu, in the transcendental topics of the Lord, ratiṁ, attraction, na, shall not, kuryāt, do. Translation. Transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord Hari is knowledge resulting in the complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of the material modes. Such knowledge is self-satisfying due to its being free from material attachment, and being transcendental, it is approved by authorities. Who could fail to be attracted? According to Bhagavad Gita 10.9, the characteristics of pure devotees are wonderful. The complete functional activities of a pure devotee are always engaged in the service of the Lord. And thus the pure devotees exchange feelings of ecstasy between themselves and relish transcendental bliss. This transcendental bliss is experienced even in the stage of devotional practice, sadhana avastha, if properly undertaken under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. And in the mature stage, the developed transcendental feelings culminates in realization of the particular relationship with the Lord, by which a living entity is originally constituted, up to the relationship of conjugal love, with the Lord, which is estimated to be the highest transcendental bliss. Thus, bhakti yoga, being the only means of God realization, is called kaivalya. Srila Jiva Goswami quotes the Vedic version, Eko Narayana Deva Paravaranam Parama Aste Kaivalya-Sammata-pathas, in this connection, and establishes that Narayana, the personality of Godhead, is known as kaivalya, and the means which enables one to approach the Lord is called kaivalya-pantha, or the only means of attainment of Godhead. This kaivalya-pantha begins from shravana, or hearing those topics that relate to the personality of Godhead. And the natural consequences of hearing such hari-katha is attainment of transcendental knowledge, which causes detachment from all mundane topics, for which a devotee has no taste at all. For a devotee, all mundane activities, social and political, become unattractive, and in the mature state, such a devotee becomes uninterested even in his own body, and what to speak of bodily relatives. In such a state of affairs, one is not agitated by the waves of the material modes. There are different modes of material nature, and all mundane functions in which a common man is very much interested or in which he takes part becomes unattractive for the devotee. This state of affairs is described herein as āpratinivṛtta-guṇormi, and it is possible by ātma-prasāda, or complete self-satisfaction without any material connection. The first-class devotee of the Lord attains this stage of devotional service, but despite his loftiness, for the Lord's satisfaction, he may play the voluntary part of a preacher of the Lord's glory and dovetail all his devotional service, even mundane interest, just to give the neophytes a chance to transform mundane interest into transcendental bliss. Srila Rupa Goswami has described this action of a pure devotee as nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. Even mundane activities, dovetailed with service to the Lord, are also calculated to be transcendental or approved kaivalya affairs. But before we discuss on this verse, let us offer some prayers. Om Jnānatim-Mirandhasya Jnānāṁ-Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Nama Shreshtham Manamapi Shachiputram Matra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Murupurim Mathurim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Adadandastrinam dante idam yachaha punaha punaha Shriman Rupa Padambhojam Dhulisyam Janma Janmani. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 3, entitled Pure Devotional Service, Text 12. Jñānaṁ yad āpratinivṛtta-guṇormi-cakram ātma-prasāda yatra guṇeṣv asaṅgaḥ kaivalya-sammata-pathas atha bhakti-yogaḥ ko nirvṛto hari-kathāsu ratiṁ na kuryāt. Transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord Hari is knowledge resulting in the complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of the material modes. Such knowledge is self-satisfying due to its being free from material attachment, and being transcendental, it is approved by authorities. Who could fail to be attracted? So this is the wonderful transcendental verse where it very clearly helps us understand the natural attraction that all the living entities have towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem Sadhya Kabo Noy Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karoy Uday. This is mentioned in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, that this Krishna Prema, this love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, is Nitya Siddha. It's eternally present in all the living entities. It's not a sadhya. It's not something that that one is going out of oneself to attain. It is already present. Then how does one uncover? How does one uncover this loving devotional service that is already present within all the living entities? Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karaya Uday. So when the hearing takes place, hearing the holy names of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this transcendental holy names of the Lord, Golokera Premadhana Harinama Sankirtana. This is mentioned by Srila Narottam Das Thakur. So this love for the Lord is the ultimate riches that anyone can possess. Premadhana. So in the material world, there is this material possessions that one has, but the material possessions are temporary. It is based on one particular life. So a living entity takes birth, and that is the beginning of that particular life when one takes birth, and when one dies, that is the end of that particular life. From birth to death is one life. And one of the ironies of material possessions is that one can possess the whole wealth of the material world if one wants to, or if one is really capable of doing it. But when the body dies, unfortunately, one has to give up. One might not actually be ready, for example, to give up, but mrityu sarva haraschaham. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that he is actually death as well, and he takes away everything in the form of death. Mrityu sarva haraschaham udbhava cha bhavishyatam kirtir vak shri cha narinam smritir medha dhritir kshama. So Krishna is actually, in a sense, he is present everywhere in the form of his energy. In the form of his energy, so yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam chami pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sachamena pranashyati. As Krishna mentions, one who sees me in everything and everything in me, I am never lost to such a person, and such a person is never lost to me. So this is so maya tatam idam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina matsthani sarva bhutani na chaham teshu avastita. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that he is present in the form of his energy everywhere. Maya tatam idam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina matsthani sarva bhutani na chaham teshu avastita. Everything is situated on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he personally is not present there. He is present in the form of his energy. In a way, his energy is non-different from him, but it is different also. So this is the transcendental teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is called Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. So Achintya is something that cannot be understood by the material mind or the blunt material senses. Achintya khalu ye bhava natam starkena yujet. Prakrtibhir param yascha tad achintasya lakshanam. So it is mentioned in Mahabharata that all these topics, transcendental spiritual topics, is achintya. It cannot be through the blunt material mind or material senses. If one is trying to understand the transcendental topics, it will be very difficult. It's nearly impossible actually. Because sevonmukhe hi jivhado swayameva smrtiyah. Until and unless one has got that attitude of service, this revelation does not take place. The revelation of the transcendental position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavrita mudoyam nabi janati mamebhya paramovyayam. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that he is not, he does not reveal his transcendental position to everyone. And this is very clearly mentioned in one of the beautiful verses that Sri Vyasadeva says, Itham satam brahma sukhanubhutya dasyam gatanam paradaivatena maya shritanam naradarakena sakam vijahru krita punya punja. So this is a very beautiful verse. Srila Prabhupada quotes this often in many of his lectures. This is talking about Vyasadeva describing how the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna is playing with his cowherd friends. And he's so it is mentioned that here, just look at this person. He is the Brahma Sukhanubhutya. Itham Satam Brahma Sukhanubhutya. So what that means is, here is this person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, who is the source of the Brahma Sukha bliss for all the people who are after Brahma Sukha. The transcendentalists who are after this this pure bliss, which is totally conspicuous, totally cut off from all material pleasure and happiness and pain. So this experience of our real self, that is called Brahma Sukha. When we experience our real self, which is eternal, that is Brahma Sukha. So Srila Vyasadeva describes in that particular verse, he says, here is this person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, who is the source of Brahma Sukha for all the people who want Brahma Sukha. Itham satam Brahma Sukhanubhutya dasya gatanam paradaivatena. In the next line, Srila Vyasadeva mentions that for someone who is in an attitude of servitude to the Lord, he is the Supreme Lord. Someone in servitude, for example, Hanumanji. Hanumanji is always in the mode of servitude to Lord Sri Ram. And for him, Dasya Gatanam Paradaivatena. He is the Supreme Lord, Lord Sri Ram. So, Dasya Gatanam Maya Shritanam Naradarakena. The next line says that for one who is under the influence of Maya. So, there are two kinds of Mayas. One is the Mahamaya and another is the Yoga Maya. So the Mahamaya is what is keeping the conditioned living entities inside that conditioned state. So Mahamaya has got, Srila Prabhupada mentions, Avarnatmika Shakti and Prakshepatmika Shakti. So Avarnatmika Shakti is the kind of, when the living entity wants to enjoy in the material world, the covering that the energy of the Mahamaya energy of the Supreme Lord provides is Avarnatmika Shakti. That is the covering. And then there is Prakshepatmika Shakti. The Prakshepatmika Shakti is pulling one down again. So that is, until and unless one is really qualified to enter into the kingdom of God, one has to become totally qualified, 100% qualified to go back home, back to Godhead. Until one is not in that state, the Mahamaya will give lots of tests to the living entities in order to check whether the living entity is ready to go back home, back to Godhead. So that is prakshepatmika shakti. So that is pulling down. So one is covering potency and another is pulling down potency. So that is the Mahamaya. And the Yogamaya is the potency that is the internal energy of the Lord. So the internal energy of the Lord is providing that sense of intimacy in the relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is the highest state. So once one is coming out of the material influences, one reaches that stage. So that is what is mentioned in this verse, where Srila Prabhupada quotes Srila Jiva Goswami, and he says, Eko Narayano Deva Paravaranam Parama Aste Kaivalya-sammata. In this connection, and establishes that Narayana, the personality of Godhead, is known as Kaivalya, and the means which enables one to approach the Lord is called the Kaivalya-pantha, or the only means of attainment of Godhead. So that is so again, just like in Maya, we have Mahamaya and Yogamaya. So Mahamaya is creating that space in the conditioned world, which is which is enabling the living entity to forget Krishna, and then Yogamaya is placing a kind of environment in the spiritual world where the living entity forgets that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engages in intimate relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. So there is Shantarasa as well. The Shantarasa is mainly in relation. It is like in the Shantarasa, it is more a neutral kind of relationship, whereas the real relationship in service starts from Dasya, in servitude. As we said, for example, Hanumanji for Lord Sri Ram, or Daruka, who is the charioteer of Sri Krishna. So he is in Dasya Rasa. Then Sakhya, like Arjuna is in Sakhya Rasa. Then Vatsalya, Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, Vasudeva and Devaki, all are in Vatsalya Rasa, in the relationship of parent of Krishna. And then we have the Madhurya. Shri Radhika Madhavayor Apara Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namnam Pratikshana Swadhana Lolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charnaravindam. So as it is said in Guru Ashtakam, that is the wonderful state of the Guru. They are always constantly engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Radha and Madhava. Shri Radhika Madhavayor Apara Madhurya Leela, in their wonderful pastimes. Gunarupa Namnam Pratikshana Swadhana Lolupasya. At every moment, they are enjoying that blissful service to the divine couple. Vande Guru Shri Charnaravindam. To such a Guru's lotus feet, I offer my respectful obeisances. So this, so we were talking about the Kaivalya here, the Kaivalya Pantha, or the only means of attainment. So there is in the Kaivalya word, there are two ways of, just like the Maya, Mahamaya and Yogamaya we have. Kaivalya, we can understand Kaivalya, like there is one where Prakashananda Saraswati says, Kaivalyam narakayate, Tridashapur Akasha Pushpayate, Durdantendriya Kala Sarpapatali Prothkhata Damshrayate, Vishwam Purna Sukhayate, Chaitanya, Yet Vaibhava Kataksham Tam Gauram Eva Stuma. So there is that verse where that Kaivalya, so there is a Kaivalya which is in relationship with merging into the Brahman effulgence of the Lord. So that Kaivalya is different. The Kaivalya mentioned here is in relationship with the path towards the Lord, and it is mentioned here in this connection, and establishes Narayana, the personality of Godhead, is known as Kaivalya, and the means which enables one approach the Lord is called Kaivalya Pantha, or the only means of attainment of Godhead. This Kaivalya Pantha begins from Shravana, or hearing those topics that relate to the personality of Godhead, and the natural consequences of hearing Such hari-katha is attainment of transcendental knowledge, which causes detachment from all mundane topics. So that is the kaivalya pantha. Uh, but then the one that Prakashananda Saraswati says is the merging, which is different. So for a devotee, merging into the Brahma effulgence of the Lord is like a hell. Why is it a hell? Because when one merges with the Brahma Jyoti of the Lord, there is no question of rendering any devotional service. For a devotee, rendering devotional service is paramount. There is nothing higher than rendering devotional service for a devotee. And therefore, when there is this merging into the Brahma effulgence, the devotee thinks it as if it is a hell. So that is what. So there is diyamanam na grananti vina yat sevanam jana. So salokya sarupya samipya sarshti apiuta diyamanam na grananti vina mat sevanam jana. It is said by Kapila Deva in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that a devotee is what to speak of sayujya, which is the merging into the Brahman effulgence. The devotee does not even want any other types of liberation, which is like salokya, being in the same planet as the Lord, sarupya, having the same form as the Lord, samipya, being near the Lord, and sarshti, having the same opulence as the Lord. So if the loving devotional service to the Lord is not available, then even those type of liberations a devotee does not want. So that is the kaivalya pantha. What that is mentioned in this purport by Srila Prabhupada, that kaivalya pantha is that one-pointed attachment to the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in terms of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, "Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim kavitam va jagadisha kame, mama janmani janmani ishware bhavatat bhakti rahitu kitoi." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying that, "O Lord, I do not want na dhanam, material wealth, na janam, nor followers, na kavitam sundarim chakame, nor a beautiful companion. Then what do you want? Mama janmani janmani ishware." So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that birth after birth, let me have ishware bhavatat bhaktir ahaitu kitvai. Let me have loving devotional service, which is costless, loving devotional service to you, O Krishna. So this is the transcendental position of the pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that they are not even looking for liberation. So that is what is called bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakale ashanta Krishna bhakta nishkama teva shanta. So that is mentioned in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, that someone who is after material enjoyment, that is bhukti, someone who is after liberation, that is mukti, and someone who is after perfection, that is siddhi. So that is the bhukti kami is the karmi, the mukti kami are the jnanis, and the siddhi kami are the yogis. Bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakale ashanta. Unfortunately, they are not peaceful. What is the reason they are not peaceful? Because there is some kind of want there, and until there is a want or a need, especially the want, the need is the real need for all the living entities is already within. That need is to render loving devotional service to Krishna. That is already there. But when that need becomes some kind of a want, then it loses its original nature, and then it becomes a bhukti kami, mukti kami, or siddhi kami. One who is craving for material sense enjoyment, one who is craving for liberation, or one who is craving for perfection. Because of craving that is present, there is ashanti. The peacefulness is not there. Then Krishna bhakta nishkama ateva shanta. A pure devotee of Krishna is without any other anyabhilashita shunyam. So there is no other desire except to serve Krishna. And jnana karmadi anavritam. So totally uncovered from the tinge of jnana marga and karma marga. Jnana karmadi anavritam. So that is this this philosophical speculation, mental speculation, and fruitive activities. When one is totally free from that, jnana karmadi anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhakti-yogaḥ. So, and then the third is when one is doing the activities which is in terms of the servitude to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, which is helping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, then it is bhakti-uttama. That is the topmost devotional service. So that is given by Srila Rupa Goswami. So we see here, if we look at the first line here, jñānaṁ yat āpratinivṛtta-guṇormi-cakram. So transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Lord Hari is knowledge resulting in complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of material modes. So that is jnane prayase udapasya namanta eva. So what is the real knowledge? So bahunam janmanam ante jnanvan mam prapadyate. Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. The end of knowledge is to render loving devotion service to Krishna. If one keeps on developing knowledge, but if one is not surrendering on to Krishna, then unfortunately that knowledge has got no value. So therefore, Krishna mentions that after many, many births of accumulating knowledge, bahunam janmanam ante jnanvan. So a person becomes wise, full of wisdom. What does that person do? Mam prapadyate, surrenders onto me. So when that surrender happens, then what does one realize? Vasudeva sarvamiti. One realizes that everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Vasudeva, son of Vasudeva. Vasudeva sarvamiti. And then who is such a person called? Who surrenders onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and knows that everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sa Mahatma. So such a person is called a great soul. And are they easily available? No, they are not. Sudurlabha. Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. They are extremely rare. Such kind of persons who have totally surrendered onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and know that everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead are extremely rare. So this is what Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So we are talking about here jñānaṁ yat āpratinivṛtta-guṇormi-cakram ātma-prasāda yatra guṇeṣv asaṅgaḥ. So such knowledge is self-satisfying. So here it is mentioned that so when there is real knowledge, the real knowledge is helping one to understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is real knowledge. So there is adhyatma jnana nityatvam tattva jnanartha darshanam etad jnanam iti proktam yadato ajnanam anyatha. Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that this is so what is a real knowledge? So atma jnanartha darshanam. So tattva jnanartha darshanam. So that is the real knowledge. The real knowledge is that which helps us in understanding our original constitutional position. What is our original constitutional position? Jivera swarupaya krishnera nityadas. Krishna se tatastha shakti beda beda prakash. Suryansha yatha agni jwala chaya krishnera swabhavika teen prakar shakti haya. So this is mentioned in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So that is the real knowledge. The real knowledge is that which will help one at the time of death. Because death is the final examination for all the living entities in this material universe. There are a lot of material examinations that are given at different stages. But the final examination is at the time of death. So what is the state of mind at the time of death? And that knowledge which helps one to understand and go in the direction of attaining that state of mind which is needed at the time of death is the real knowledge. Because at that time, So yam yam vapi smaran bhavan tyajati ante kalevaram tam tam iveti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavita. Anta kale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram ya prayati samadbhavam yati nasti atra samshaya. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that anta kale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram. At the time of death, if someone remembers me, smaran muktva kalevaram, ya prayati samadbhavam yati nasti atra samshaya. So such a person will come back to me. There is not even an iota of doubt, Krishna says. Uh, so that is the real education that will help one to come out of the cycle of birth and death. Yeah. So unfortunately, that is called bhava sagar. This material world is called bhava sagar. So bhava sagar means it's an ocean of birth and death. Uh, it's like uh, it is seemingly unending, but it can be ended when we have this ātma-prasāda that is mentioned here. Ātma-prasāda yatra guṇeṣv. So such knowledge is self-satisfying due to its being free from material attachment. So that is the real knowledge, when one can relish the bliss within oneself without any external influences. When one can be in that state is called atma-rama. Atma-ramascha muneyo nigranthapi urukrame kurvanti ahetukim bhaktim itham bhuta guno hari. So in that stage, when one is relishing the bliss within oneself, such type of people naturally get attracted to the chanting of the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Because it is transcendental sound vibration which has nothing to do with anything material. The material world is under the influence of the three modes of material nature. Tribhir gunamir bhaver, ebhi sarvamidam jagat, mohitam nabi janati mamebhya paramavayam. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that the whole universe, material universe, is under the influence of the three modes of material nature. So there is a mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. So tribhir gunamir bhaver, the mode of goodness is helping one to develop knowledge. Satvat sanjayate jñānaṁ, rajasa lobham evacha. The mode of passion is unfortunately leading one to the state of greed, kind of accumulating lots and lots of material possessions. And the mode of ignorance is indolence and laziness. Pramada moho tamaso, bhavato ajñānaṁ evacha. So that is total ignorance. So there is this ignorance. That is what is avidya. It's called avidya. What is vidya? Vidyam cha eva yastad vedo bhayam saha. Avidya mrityum tirtva vidyayam amritam ashnute. So this is mentioned in Sri Ishopanishad. So one should understand what is knowledge and what is ignorance simultaneously. Vidyam cha eva yastad veda ubhayam saha. Avidya mrityum tirtva vidyayam amritam ashnute. So when one is in this mode of ignorance, or in the state of the modes of material nature, that is mrityum tirtva. So that is the state where one is dying. And vidyayam amritam ashnute. When one is in the transcendental knowledge state, one is in that state of nectarian blissful state, where one understands that the eternal position of one's existence. So that is vidya. And what is avidya? Avidya is total attachment to the body and thinking that the body is all in all. So when the body dies, I am gone. No one goes when the body dies. One continues one's journey in different species of life. Krishna. So there are different 8,400,000 species of life, and then E rupe brahmanda brahmite kono bhagyavan jeev guru krishna prasada paye bhakti lata beach. So it is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita that the living entity is taking birth across the different planetary systems in different species of life. Brahmanda brahmite, and there is some living entity through great fortune Kono bhagyavan jeev Guru Krishna prasad paye bhakti lata bij. So gets that costless mercy of the spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead Shri Krishna. And then one realizes the presence of that seed of loving devotional service. So that is the ātma-prasāda uta yatra guṇeṣv asaṅgaḥ. So when there is guṇeṣv asaṅgaḥ, there is ātma-prasāda. When one is detached from the material modes, one knows one's original constitutional position as an eternal living entity, eternal part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of God. Then kaivalya-sammata-pathas atha bhakti-yogaḥ. So that is the third line. So, and being transcendental, such knowledge is self-satisfying due to it being free from material attachment, and being transcendental, it is approved by authorities. So kaivalya-sammata-pathas atha bhakti-yogaḥ. So this is what Srila Prabhupada has very clearly enunciated in the purport, that what is the kaivalya pantha? This kaivalya pantha is that one-pointed loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Kaivalya-sammata-pathas atha bhakti-yogaḥ. That is bhakti-yogaḥ. So as Krishna says, bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tatvata tato mam tatuto gyatva vishate tadanantaram. So न साध्यति माम योगो न सांख्य धर्म उद्धव न स्वाध्याय तपस्यागो यतो bhaktir mamojita. So Krishna mentions to Arjuna that you cannot know me by yoga, na sadhyati mam, na sankhya, not through sankhya, na dharma, not through religious principles, uddhava, na swadhyayas, you cannot know me by self-study, na tapas, you cannot know me by austerity, tyago, you cannot know me by renunciation. So he has given 6 different ways, and he is saying that the 6 ways you cannot still know me. Then how can you know me? Yato bhaktir mamojita. So when one is rendering loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then Krishna can be known. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tatvata tato mam tatuto gyata vishate tadanantara. So Krishna says that then one enters into the kingdom of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. Bhaktya tva ananya shakya ahameva vidho arjuna gyatum drishtum cha tatvena praveshtum cha parantapa. So again, Krishna says that bhaktya tva ananya shakya. So and this is another important part, which is this ananya, this constant loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ananya shintayanto mam ye jana paripasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshamam mahamyam. So one who is constantly remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, chintayanto mam, and one is rendering loving devotional service to Krishna, ye jana paripasate tesham nitya abhiyuktanam yogakshamam mahamyam. So Krishna says that I personally, so this is the wonderful state of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He personally takes care of such a devotee who is constantly remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ananyas chintayanto mam. So there is Srila Prabhupada actually mentions about this the Bhagavad Gita 10.9, the characteristics of devotees. In the beginning of the purport, he mentions. So that is Madchitta Madgat Prana, Bodhayanta Parasparam, Kathayantascha Mam Nityam, Tushyanti Cha Ramanti Cha. So that is the state of the pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So their mind is totally absorbed in the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Madchitta, and therefore their body, the whole life function, is also engaged in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Madgat Prana, Bodhayanta Parasparam. Because their mind and the whole energy is engaged in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, what they are doing is they are again talking about Krishna to each other. Bodhayanta Parasparam. And how they are talking to each other? Kathayantascha Mam Nityam. They are constantly talking to each other about whom? Krishna, about Krishna. And how? Tushyanti Cha Ramanti Cha. So with total satisfaction and total blissful absorption, one is talking about Krishna to each other. That is the wonderful state of pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Madchitta Madgat Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam. kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. So there's then tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadhami buddhiyogam tam yena mam upayanti te. So Krishna mentions, so again there is satata yuktanam, that connection with the Lord which is satata, which is continuous, without any break. That is so if one is in that continuous state of absorption in the remembrance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then and bhajatam priti purvakam, and one is rendering loving devotional service, priti, total love, 100% pure love, priti purvakam. Then what Krishna says that dadhami buddhi yogam tam, I give them the intelligence, yena mam upayanti te, through which they can come to me. Then tesham evanu kampartam aham agyanajam tama nashyami atma-bhavasto jnana-dīpena bhāsvata. So here this ātma-prasāda is given. ātma-prasāda uta yatra guṇeṣv sangha. And that is atma-bhava. Krishna mentions atma-bhava. So tesham evanu kampartam aham agyanajam tama nashyami atma-bhavasto jnana-dīpena bhāsvata. So Krishna says that I give them the special mercy, anukampartham. And what is that special mercy? Aham agyanajam tama. That ignorance is destroyed. How? Through the lamp of knowledge. Nashyami atma bhavasto jnana dīpena bhāsvata. Through the lamp of knowledge that Krishna personally lights through his costless mercy. One attains tesham evanu aham nashyami atma bhavasto jnana dīpena bhāsvata. Then one realizes the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is the kaivalya-sammata-pathas atha bhakti-yogaḥ. And the last line is nirvṛto hari-kathāsu ratiṁ kuryāt. So the last line is saying that who could fail to be attracted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So this is a very nirvṛtti tarsai rupagīyamanāt bhavauṣadat shotra manobhiramat ka uttama shloka gunanuvanat puman virajyeta vina pashubnat. So this is mentioned in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So this, when one is engaged in the loving devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is nirvṛtti tarsai rupagīyamanāt. It is a state where one can be totally oblivious to all the ups and downs that are happening in the material world, because that is the nature of the material world. It is dvandva, that is duality. The whole existence of material world is based on duality. Therefore, Krishna says, "Sukha dukkhe samay kritva labha labho jaya jayo tato yuddhaya yujyasva naivam papam avapsyasi." So Krishna mentions to Arjuna that if one can have that equanimity of mind, sukha dukkhe, there might be happiness, there might be sorrow. Samay kritva, if one can have the equanimity of mind, labha labho jaya jayo, one might gain something or one might lose something. One might be victorious or one might get defeated. So this is constantly, there is this pendulum in this duality of the material world where one is constantly in this state of flux. There is constant state of flux between the opposites. So if one can remain equanimous within these opposites, within this duality, and one is rendering loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead without being influenced by these dualities in this material world, then one is going in the direction of nirvṛto hari-kathāsu ratiṁ kuryāt. One is going in the direction of being attached to hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is the goal of the human form of life. If somehow or other one can develop attachment, so shrama eva hi kevalam. So there is dharma svanushrita pumsam vishvakshena kathasu notpadiyat ratiṁ yadi shrama eva hi kevalam. So the final goal is to develop attachment towards hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If that goal is attained, then the goal of human life is attained. the goal of human life is to, it is very rare. So there is Sri Prahlad Maharaj actually says, Kaumaram macharit prajñam dharman bhagavatan iha durlabham manusham janmam tadapi adhruvam arthadam. So Srila Prahlad Maharaj says that this loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna should start from childhood itself. Kaumaram acharit prajña dharma, bhagavata dharma. So that is this loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah. Why? Because durlabham manusham janmam. So Sri Prahlad Maharaj says that this human form of life is very rarely attained. And tadapi adhruvam arthadam. And even though it is rarely attained, it is temporary. And it is the greatest possession that we have, this human form of life. Arthadam. Artha is the wealth. So the greatest wealth that we have is this human form of life. And in this human form of life, if somehow or other we can understand our original constitutional position as an eternal part and parcel of Krishna. Mama eva amsha jiva loke jiva bhuta sanātana. Manah shashtani indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. As Krishna mentions, that all the living entities in this whole universe are my eternal part and parcels. So somehow or other, if one can very clearly be in that state of experience that one is eternally connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, then one will be fulfilling the goal of the human form of life. Otherwise, it is unfortunate if so there is this ahara nidra bhayamaitunam cha samanyam etad pashubhir naranam dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho dharmena hina pashubhir samana. So that is mentioned in the scriptures, that eating, sleeping, mating and defending, that is common between the human beings and all the other living entities. Then what is it that distinguishes the human being from other living entities? That is dharma. And what is dharma? Dharma is dharmam tu sakshat bhagavad pranita. So dharma, or the religious principles, is the codes that are given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what is the final code of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Man mana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyati uktvevam atmanam matparayana. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that man mana bhava, give your mind to me. Mad bhakta, become my devotee. Madhyaji, mam namaskuru, offer your prayers to me, offer your obeisances to me. Mame vaishyasi satyam te. So Krishna says that I'm telling this to you, Arjuna, and this is the truth, that you will come back to me. And why I'm telling this to you? Prati jane priyosim. Because, oh Arjuna, you're very dear to me, I'm telling this to you. And the second line also has Mame vaishyasi yuktva atmanam matparayana. So when the whole mind is saturated with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, surely one will go back home, back to Godhead. So yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram tam tam evati kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavita. As Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, that whatever one is constantly remembering when one is awake, that thought will come at the time of death. And whatever that thought is, one will get that kind of body in the next life. So therefore, if the thoughts are in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, then one is guaranteed to go back home, back to Godhead, which is the sum and substance of this particular verse. Jñānaṁ āpratinivṛtta-guṇormi-cakram ātma-prasāda yatra guṇeṣv asaṅgaḥ kaivalya-sammata-pathas atha bhakti-yogaḥ nirvṛto hari-kathāsu ratiṁ kuryāt. Transcendental knowledge in relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is knowledge resulting in the complete suspension of the waves and whirlpools of the material modes. Such knowledge is self-satisfying due to its being freed from material attachment. And being transcendental, it is approved by authorities. Who could fail to be attracted? So, very beautiful verse, which is talking about our natural attraction towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which can be uncovered when we hear and chant about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Padasevanam, Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma-nivedanam. So, hearing, chanting, remembering, Shravanam Kirtanam about Krishna, Vishnu, Smaranam Padasevanam, rendering service to the lotus feet of the Lord, Archanam, giving the flowers to the Lord, Vandanam, saying the prayers to the Lord, Dasyam, becoming the servant of the Lord, Sakyam, becoming the friend of the Lord, and Atma-nivedanam, total surrender onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these are the 9 types of devotional service that one can engage in. And when one engages in these devotional service, these activities, one reaches that stage where one becomes totally oblivious to this material trials and tribulations that happen in the material world. And that attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead keeps becoming stronger and stronger, which is the goal of the human form of life. With that, I would like to thank you all very much for listening. Let me see the comments. There is Subranto Chaudhary saying Hare Krishna, Jai Radhe. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, all glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale. Śrīmate Bhakti-vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshikarine. Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Krishne Matirastu. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.